Hi everyone, it's Mrs. Jones here. In this video, we are going to talk about percents, decimals, and fractions and the conversion between the three, which hopefully will feel like a review for you. And then we are going to focus on percents. So hopefully this feels familiar, but if you don't know this, percent comes from the French language. So percent means per 100. So if I have 50% of something, it means I have 50 out of 100. So keep in mind that all of our percents are always out of 100 when we think about them as a fraction. So if we were to say someone got a 3 out of 5 on a quiz and we wanted to convert this into a decimal and then into a percent, remember that our decimal place values go tenths, hundredths, thousands, 10,000s, etc. So it's first going to be helpful for us to think about this quiz being in points out of 10. So can I think of an equivalent fraction that's instead of 3/5, what is that out of 10? Well, that's going to be 6 out of 10. This 6/10 means that when I come over and I do my decimal, I'm going to put a 6 in this tenths place value. So my decimal would be 0.6, or more formally known as 6/10. So we're now thinking about 6/10, but remember that in percent, we're thinking about it being out of 100%. So I want to think about an equivalent fraction that's out of 100, which will lead me to 60 out of 100. I then transfer this into being my percent as 60%. So I want you to pause the video right now, and I just want you to do the top half. These are what we call our unit fractions. You'll notice the numerator is always 1. I want you to see if you could fill in this chart. What is the unit, if I give you the unit fraction of 1/2, what is that as a decimal and a percent? All right, you're back. So I'm just going to slowly reveal this table, and hopefully this feels familiar. Some of these that might feel a little rustier are the 1/6 and the 1/9, but I would encourage you to try to memorize those. So keeping this in mind, I now want to talk about what happens if we have similar fractions that have the same denominator but a different numerator. So what if I have 3/8? What could we do? Well, that means that we could actually multiply our 1/8 by 3, and that'll get us to 37.5%. Similarly, if we wanted to do 5/8, we would multiply it by 5 to get 62.5%. And if we wanted to do 7/8, we would multiply it by 7 to get 87.5%. Similarly, with our 5/6 and our 7/9, you'd get 83.3%. And keep in mind, remember that little bar is saying it's a repeating decimal, and it's the number, the bar over the number, that's the number that repeats. And then 7/9 would be 77.7%. So for example, what happens? Let's say that I'm asking you what is 44.4% of 81. Well, hopefully you remember that 44.4% is the same as 4/9, right? 1/9 was 11.1%, so this would be 4/9. Well, if I wanted to figure this out, what I could do is I could then figure out, well, I know I can easily find 1/9 of 81, and that's going to be 9. So 4/9 of 81 would be 36, because I'm taking that 9 and I'm multiplying it by 4. So I want you to pause the video here and see if you can find what's 37.5% of 40. All right, you're back. Hopefully you remember that that's 3/8. Well, instead of finding 3/8, let's start with 1/8. I know 1/8 is 5, so that tells me that 3/8 is going to be 15. All right, what if we give you something that's not quite as familiar or recognizable from the table? What about 12%? What would that be as a fraction? I want you to pause the video and see if you can figure that out on your own. All right, you're back. Hopefully you started by saying, well, let's start it out of 100 per cent. 12 out of 100, but we always want to simplify. Both of those numbers are divisible by 4, so 12% as a fraction would be 3/25. All right, we're moving right along. Remember that this 0.35 or 35 hundredths, I would write that as 35 out of 100, which would give me a percent of 35%. If we were to go backwards and think about it as my fraction of 35 out of 100, we always want to simplify it. Those are both divisible by 5, which means my simplified fraction would be 7/20. All right, I want you to pause the video here, and I want you to see if you can, whoops, I forgot to give you this one. I want you to see if you can fill in this chart. All right, you're back. I'm just going to quickly delete these so that you can make sure that you are feeling comfortable with fraction, decimal, percent conversions. All right, hopefully these all felt good. Remember to always simplify your fraction. All right, so what's really important is our percent of perfection is 10%. We can do so much with 10%, especially so many percents in your head. And 10% is our best friend here. So if we wanted to find 10% of 45, there's a couple ways you could do that. First, you could think about, well, I just want to divide it by 10, which is going to get me to 4.5. Another way to think about it is you could think, what's 1/10 of 45? That also gets you to 4.5. And remember, the same is true of me moving my decimal one place over to the left. All three ways are going to get me to 4.5. Now let's use this benchmark of 10% to find some other percentages. What if I want to know what 20% of 45 is? Well, I know that 10% is 4.5. So 20% is double of that, which means 20% would be 9. What about 30%? Similarly, we know 10% is 4.5. So triple that would get me to 13.5. What about 5%? What do you think you would do? Pause the video here and try this one on your own. All right, you're back. If we know 10% is 4.5, hopefully you realize 5% is going to be half of that, which will get us to 2.25. All right, pause your video here and try 35% of 45. All right, so we knew 10% of 45 is 4.5. We also know 30% of 45 is 13.5. We know 5% of 45 is 2.25. So if I want to find 35, I'm going to add those red numbers to get an answer of 15.75. Okay, what about this one? 350% of 20. Notice that this percentage is above 100. So do you think our answer is going to be bigger or smaller than 20? Well, I know 100% of 20 is going to be 20. If I want to find 300% of 20, I would triple that number. Well, then I also have to incorporate the 50% of 20, which would be half of it, such as 10, which then gets me to 350% of 20, which is going to be 70. Notice how much bigger that number is, our answer, compared to the number we started with. And that's all because the percentage we started with was bigger than 100. All right, I want you to pause the video here, and I want you to solve all 6 of these, and we're going to notice a quick little pattern here. Pause the video and see what you can do. All right, you're back. So hopefully you got these right. And I want you to look really carefully at the pattern you notice between the red, the green pair, and the blue pair. What do you notice? Do you see that these numbers switch places, but I still got the same answer? The same thing happens here, and I got the same answer. And the same thing happens here, and I got the same answer. Notice that the black questions, what is 60% of 13, 50% of 12, and 150% of 18? Those all are much easier using that benchmark of 10%, right? Those are easy benchmarks to work from compared to 13% or 12% or 18%. So the key here is that you can flip them. So I want you to try this question. This is the last question. Pause the video, see if you can try this one on your own. All right, you're back. What is 28% of 25? So hopefully you flipped it to think about what is 25% of 28. Well, 25% is 1/4 of 28. So my answer here would be 7. All right, nice job. Hopefully this all makes sense. We're going to keep doing a little bit with percents, but go off and try your homework now.